Alright, we are recording. So I had been musing for a little bit that I may order a physical copy of the book. Just so I can more easily share it with people. Likely my brother, let him read it. I'm feeling even more like that because I know it's only chapter 1 and there's plenty of time for the story to go bad. I've made this point before that you can have anything, whether it's a book, a video game, a movie. It can start well, but if it falls, you don't recover that. That doesn't work. Hopefully that won't happen here. I doubt it will because Vonda's very good. And yeah, it's only chapter 1, but it's like, no, I'm very much enjoying this. And even though we are getting some elements aligning with the movie here, it doesn't feel like what happened in Search for Spock. Once we hit the movie, it felt constrained. No, it still feels like she's telling the story, not she's telling the screenplay kind of thing. So yeah, I'm very, very happy about that. And it's just, I may order a copy here just because, like, yeah, Search for Spock is weaker, but at least so far I know only 2 things of... How many? 15 in total, because prologue and epilogue, and 13 chapters. But still, it's like, yeah, this is... I'm liking it. Although there are some things I'll get to that I don't like. We'll get to that. We get some more information on the Traveler, including its first encounter with a Starfleet ship. But we do have here the brief interval in which a small blue planet would revolve around its ordinary yellow, its white, sun 300 times. The troubled music from that blue world ripped apart into incoherence. The songs faded and finally died. And finally they died. Now the Traveler hurtled toward the silence, its own song a cry. As the stars sped past and it received no response, it gradually transmuted its music into a dirge. So it is about 300 years then after the large-scale hunting of the humpback, I would presume, and so however long after that, it's death. So just to help give a time frame for that. Also, I will mention this now, it does feel a little confused at times while reading it. This appears to be 3 months after the prologue. Prologue, we had the one thing suggesting 3 days from the ritual. I think that stands up. That makes sense. This is 3 months after. Because there is a reference somewhere to it being 3 months. And it's like, well, yes, it was 3 months since Sarek left Vulcan to Earth, which occurs in the Search for Spock. So it's 3 months since then. Okay. So yeah, the Traveler is apparently just singing a dirge now. Now we get to the Saratoga that has been monitoring the neutral zone, the Romulan neutral zone, because it is curious because it does describe that the Romulans and the Klingons are allies, and because the Klingons are all upset with the Federation, there's concern that if they decide to start a war, the Romulans will jump in as well, which means you need to be ready for a raiding party to come across. But while they're there and have been on yellow alert the entire time, which is very draining, 3 months on yellow alert was bad for anyone's nerves. That's stupid. This might just be me having no military experience, but it seems like, yeah, you would never want to run any alert for that long. I mean, you can have a war stance, that's different, versus just a yellow alert the entire time, because it's like, you're going to exhaust people mentally and emotionally on that, such that they're not going to care. That it's going to lose its meaning, that they won't be at alert anymore because, no, this is the normal thing, and they'll just start falling back to normal habits instead of yellow alert habits or red alert habits. So it's... Anyway. Subspace communications brought each day's proceedings of the Genesis inquiry to every ship and starbase. Everyone had an opinion about Admiral James T. Kirk's actions, his motives, his ethics. Alexander, the captain of the ship, could not understand why Kirk did not return to Earth to defend himself. It was as if he had surrendered without fighting, as if he did not care whether the inquiry condemned or vindicated him. So I find that interesting, because that suggests to me that not all the information is being shared. Because like, why is he not returned? It's like because he feels a duty to remain on Vulcan with Spock and McCoy, who are still going through things. So it's like there's still a medical emergency essentially that he is choosing to be present for, and that should be shared. That should be something people are aware of, and also it's kind of goes to the whole Kirk very much does not leave people behind, and it is the whole. I could see some people in Starfleet, potentially this captain, also like if they knew that, being like, why the hell are we holding the inquiry then? It's like you can wait for that to be handled, right? It's not like the facts are going to change. Although when we get to the Klingon ambassador and Sarek, I would have liked if it went a little bit more in there, like a little bit more challenging of the lies the Klingon ambassador is sharing. But it's still, Sarek is doing pretty well there. Okay, so the Saratoga picks up the Traveler, and they're very confused by it, because not only is it a, what the hell is this thing? But it's, well, they first started hearing it, eventually they spot it. But it's coming through Romulan space. Evidence of Romulan ships? None, Captain. Alexander frowned. They should have seen that thing. They ought to be pursuing it. They ought to be accusing us of sending intruders into their territory. Where are they? So, that I wanted to highlight there, because it is suggesting that the Romulans are also being affected by it. Which is still curious, because you'd think that there would be information then crossing the border. Like that they would be accusing other people of having sent it. Did I not highlight that? I guess I didn't, which is fine, but apparently the Saratoga has a Deltan science officer, and I'm just like, why? I mean, I know that some things got tweaked from the motion picture, the description of the Deltans, but it still is. I mean, even in this, the whole Kale was never physically touched by a Deltan before, and now is, and having this experience, having that emotional connection with them. It's like there are difficulties with Deltans working with humans. Why are we just finding more and more of them around? I mean, it just is like, I get the whole they want to serve. I can understand that. I can respect that. But there's still certain practicalities where it's like, maybe we don't have too many of that. And it's also the whole they always need to be in groups. Ilea in the motion picture is the apparent outlier, the apparent exception to that. But it still is like, there are concerns here that it's just continuing to see them. It leaves me confused. So, by the way, Alexander is wondering with this situation, is this like the Kobayashi Maru? So I do find it a little amusing, the calling back to that. Also, it's unnecessary, but whatever. The volume of the Traveler's transmission increased, as if the probe could grip the fabric of matter and space-time itself and force it to vibrate to its will. Saratoga quivered, and then all power failed. I actually kind of like that. It's a little silly, if we take it as just the probe is that powerful. But if instead it is no, this is actually how its song works. That it is vibrate. That it is like relativistic in that it is touching space-time itself. I'm okay with that as a science fiction concept. It would also be okay. That's how you're actually hearing it through space, because now the medium, instead of being gases, like in the case of sound waves in the air, it is space-time itself is the medium. It's like, okay, I can understand that. Which would then make it kind of like gravitational waves. There's gravitational waves and there's gravity waves. They're very different. I think it's gravitational waves. I think I'm using the correct term there. Which would make it kind of like that, but at a much higher frequency. Yeah. And also with a greater different, but with very different as well. But it still is kind of sort of similar there. So, because this gravitational waves don't cause things to vibrate per se, but it's supposed to be adjusting the distance between between points, which is why interferometry can be used to pick it up, because that's very precisely measuring the distance between two mirrors, essentially. And a gravitational wave can cause that to and just enough and you pick that up. That is how LIGO works, and if they ever do use develop and launch LISA, how LISA would work. Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory is LIGO. That is up and running. And then LISA is the Laser Interferometer or Interferometry Space Antenna, which is basically the same idea, but it would be orders of magnitude larger. Like I think LIGO is like 3 kilometers that way, 2 kilometers that way, whereas LISA could be hundreds of kilometers because it would just be 3 satellites in orbit. And so they can be at great distance apart from each other. They're synchronized though, and they just have the laser, like one fires out the laser to both, and it just bounces back. It will be nuts if they pull that off. The precision required. Then they also had it was called Grace. It's a gravitational something though. I can't, like, the G stands for gravity. I don't remember what the full acronym is. But that thing, literally, it was just twin satellites that all they did was orbit, firing a laser back and forth, tracking their positions very, very precisely. The reason why is because the orbit is one's orbit is impacted by the gravity of the object you're orbiting. So every time that the Earth's gravity would be a little bit different somewhere, their positions would move. Because Earth's gravity is not constant. It does vary, and I think at one point it was like, for the most part in America, it's pretty consistent. India, for whatever reason, had a lower level of gravity than we do, and was like off by 1%, which, yeah, that's not much, but at the same time, that means 100 pounds in America would be 99 pounds in India. It's like, But I think that is something that has changed some. Like, just this stuff, it's impacted very much by stuff in the mantle and the core, and that stuff is moving. So yeah, I don't quite remember, but yeah, it's just, it is, you can find gravity maps of the Earth. Grace would have been one of the systems making that. I'm pretty sure it was Grace. Was one of the systems to generate that. There have been others, but yeah, it is neat, and it is one of those things that you might be like, wait, Earth's gravity isn't constant? No, it's not. Yeah. All right. So Saratoga loses power, and the explanation is basically, well, actually, it doesn't make sense. It'll depend on how the story ends. Because in the movie, as the probe leaves, all the power returns to things. But here, it's more like, I just got overwhelmed to the point that the ship is damaged. Because once the probe goes by, it even describes as it now being quiet with just a red... Hang on. Okay. The probe's immense length flashed past just above the upper curve of Saratoga's hull. It left them behind in a sudden silence in a dimming scarlet light. So that means then that once a probe goes by, its effect seems to be gone then. In which case, Saratoga, if it was just being dampened, if its power systems were being damped by the probe, should recover. But it doesn't. And in fact, the air grew heavy with exhaled carbon dioxide. I have a problem with this, I'll get to that later. I'm not trying that Delta name. And engineering struggled to restore the life support systems, but failed. Alexander ordered the rest of her crew into stasis, I have a little problem with that too, and repeated the message of danger till the signal's strength fell to 0. The Federation did not reply. So basically, the captain realizes, this is bad, this thing's heading towards Earth. We're on reserve power and that's it. Okay. Do what you can to get life support working. Everyone else into stasis tubes. But the final use of our power needs to be warning Starfleet. And that is correct. It's kind of going back to Chapter 1 in Wrath of Khan with how Saavik is describing what she views as the role of Starfleet. That is accurate. That no, Saratoga, it could be, if you hadn't spent that energy to broadcast out, you may have lived, but it's like, Yeah, but no, you're supposed to die so that you can warn other people. That is your responsibility. That is your duty. So, yeah. Um, so I do appreciate this, but I do just the air grew heavy with exhaled carbon dioxide. I don't think the bridge would run out of air that quickly. Not if it's comparable in size to the Enterprise bridge. Something you don't realize is actually a lot of the air you exhale still has a fair amount of oxygen. That's part of the reason why. Crap, I can't think of the actual term for it in CPR when you're doing the artificial breathing or supported breathing for somebody else. That's why that does work. It's also why breathing into a paper bag, you can still breathe that back in. Now, true, that is also to increase the amount of carbon dioxide in there because you do breathe some out. Then you inhale it back in, and it's the increase in carbon dioxide. Okay, you do that to treat somebody who's hyperventilating, right? Because hyperventilation causes your blood to take in more and more oxygen. So actually somebody who's going to go skin diving to great depth will do that because they need more oxygen in their body. So they intentionally hyperventilate. But if you're accidentally doing that, somebody may give you the plastic bag, so it's like that, so that because you're going to keep hyperventilating. But at least by getting more of the carbon dioxide in there, you're not overcharging your body with oxygen. And it will also, I'm pretty sure, starts retarding your breath as well. So it starts to physically calm your body down. Because when you're hyperventilating like that, it is like a nervous response. At least this is my understanding, could be wrong. So with the bag, you're helping to counter, that is actually countering the response. But it still is. It's like, it shouldn't be getting that bad that quick. There's also, why the hell do they have stasis tubes? Like, getting to stasis is like, we have those? I was like, I understand escape pods. Escape pods can also hold more than one person. But it's like, nah, we just got things that you can go into suspend animation. Why are these here? I don't understand why they're here. It's also how much power do they draw, but to be fair, they should be self-sustaining. They should have their own power. Same would be true of the escape pods, in which case you should be able to just run to the escape pods that should have their own life support, own power, and anyway. So yeah, I do have some issues there, but it still is, they are dead in space, potentially going to die, but spent their last energy, as they should, trying to warn Earth. Now we get to Sarek, where we learn some neat things here. Sarek of Vulcan stepped from the transporter center into the cool, damp brightness of Earth. He could have beamed directly to Federation headquarters, but he preferred to make his way on foot. On any world where conditions permitted, he chose to walk in the open air and on the open ground. In this way, he could make himself familiar with a new environment. This was something Amanda had taught him. He often wondered why Vulcans did not habitually do the same thing, for it was quite logical. I like this. And because, as I've said many times, Sarek does demonstrate the racism that Vulcans have towards others. But that has, with regards to Kirk and such, softened. Like him actually supporting McCoy is significant. Being humbled there, I think as I put in the written review for Search for Spock, that is a humbling thing that he did for McCoy. So it's like, that is significant. There is still some Vulcans are racist in this. But for him, I mean, it's like, Amanda is special, is extraordinary, so there's that, but it still is this whole, he is adopting habits. He's willing to do that, and even wonders why other Vulcans don't. So I do find that I like it because of how it shows his character is different from other Vulcans. Not totally, but somewhat. But also an element of his love for Amanda as well, that he would take on a habit from her. Like that, and consider it so valuable that it's like, to him, it's like, it is logical to do this. Everyone should be. Then we get the mention about he had made 2 journeys to Earth in 3 months, disarranged his contemplative existence. So he had actually retired, but has now come back, and I find that a little interesting for a silly reason. Technically 90 years after this, he is still an ambassador, or at least is still recognized with great respect, because he does appear in Star Trek The Next Generation, and is serving in a diplomatic function. So it might just be that he's like ambassador emeritus, where it's just he's still alive and he's still so respected that he is around. I don't remember if he is still an active ambassador at that time or not. Okay. The planetary government of Vulcan had come perilously close to forbidding the second voyage, so the current one. Sarek had to delve deep into his reserves of logic and persuasion to win their agreement. Many members of the government claimed no interest in James Kirk's fate. They offered Sarek the hypothesis that since Kirk had neutralized a series of events that he himself had begun, this isn't true, but moving on, a balance had been reached. Kirk must face the consequences of his actions alone. If Vulcans acted, the balance would be destroyed. There is more here, but I'm going to come back to that and talk about how this... Vulcans are stupid. Are kind of idiotic, but anyway, continuing. Perhaps, Sarek thought, the charge Representative T'Pring made is correct. I'm pretty sure T'Pring was the name of the elder Vulcan in Amok Time, who... It was basically described there that Starfleet was like, no, you cannot divert to let Spock do this stuff. You need to do this stuff. Whatever's going on with him, just he can deal with it. And so they were in direct contradiction of orders. And then at the end, it's like, yeah, T'Pring called, you're good. It's like, she is at that level as well. It's like, what's there? Maybe that's what he is in TNG. Where it's like, no, she can just say, I want you to do this. And Starfleet is like, yes, ma'am. Okay, perhaps I've spent too much time on Earth. I have well, this is still his thoughts. I have certainly, in the eyes of other Vulcans, spent too much time in the company of human beings, or at any rate, in the company of one human being. Yet I cannot imagine following any other path for my life, and at the end of our debate, even the flawless... Yet I cannot imagine any other path for my life, and, at the end of our debate, even the flawlessly logical, sword-edged blade of T'Pring's mind finally turned to my persuasion. She argued on my behalf. I wish we could have actually gotten the argument, but... anyway, coming back to this, the idea that the Vulcans are like, well, he started this, and he ended it. There's balance here. We need not be involved. It's like, the hell you consider this balance? Also, he didn't start anything. Right? I mean, unless you want to say all the way back to Khan, but it's like, well, wait, no, somebody else started that because it was Khan's own creation. It's like, who created Khan? He actually started that. So it's like, what are you talking about? And just this idea that, oh, well, basically he dealt with those, so why should we care? It's like, because Sarek was involved. He has a responsibility here, and you're like, nah, we don't have any responsibility. So what the hell's wrong with you? They are truly... oh, damn it. I just realized how this makes sense. Not in a good way, but it does make sense. By saying not in a good way, I mean it doesn't make the Vulcans good. But in a good way that actually, yeah, I'm stuck. I have to accept the explanation, if this is true. And it aligns even with what I've been saying about how the Vulcans are racist. They're also to a degree xenophobic and isolationist as well, which does align with the kind of racism that I've described for them. I'm stuck with, I actually have to like this. I don't, because like, this isn't reasonable, come on. But then it's like, no, they are in fact so racist that they are isolationist and potentially also xenophobic. So anything that would get them to be not involved, they're good with, which would help explain why Spock is such an exception to have been in Starfleet. Why what's his name, the Vulcan that ends up dying in the motion picture, would also be an exception. It's like anyone leaving Vulcan. I mean, it's wow, man. I want to... This is making me even more so... I need to put a note in, by the way. This is making me even more so wanting to actually come up with a more coherent argument for why Star Trek First Contact needs to be decanonized. I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. There are so many problems. So, hey, let me pause and make the note about the isolationist stuff. Okay, so I made the note that is basically what I was just saying, that they okay. I also wanted to get back to where I was in here. They want to come with any rational reason, as poor reason as it might be, to excuse them being isolationist. Now, Sarek, to his credit, being an ambassador, I mean, he, Spock, and a few others that actually leave Vulcan would be the exceptions that would recognize that they shouldn't be isolationist. But anyway, why do I want to decanonize First Contact? Okay, so I know that with, I mentioned a few times the landing party, Graham Nolan's weekly, usually, unless they have to cancel for some reason, weekly show every Wednesday starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's on Graham Nolan's YouTube channel if you want to go there and look. They're going through Star Trek the original series in production order. It has been mentioned by mainly the old guys a dislike for First Contact. Part of that is born from I can't remember the name of the episode, forgive me, where you actually meet Zephyrin Cochrane. It is stated that he was actually on a different colony. It might have been Alpha Centauri, I don't remember, but he was on a different colony when he developed warp. Whereas First Contact puts him on Earth, developing warp. That Earth had not, in fact, achieved planetary colonies prior to coming up with the time warp. I think it was referred to as time warp in that episode, but anyway. So there is that retconning, which that doesn't really bother me. That concept doesn't really bother me because you do at times need to do that. However, here, with the isolationist aspect that I'm now seeing here, see, I can deal with Vulcans sending out scout ships like what you see in First Contact in order to explore. And it's like all they're doing is just exploring. They're just gathering information. This is another reason why I hate why I hate Star Trek Enterprise. The idea of them having fleets of including battleships. No, that's not Vulcan. Except for that version of Vulcan, which is incredibly hypocritical, and I hate the Vulcans, and I really do. But in any case, the reason why I'm saying maybe this is a reason to decanonize First Contact is because they should be so isolationist. It would make sense that they actually wouldn't even bother. That they would, like, why would they go anywhere? That it should be humans encountered them, and that the first contact with Vulcan was the humans arriving, not the Vulcans arriving. Maybe they could do some, but they are so freaking isolationist here that no, I could believe that they wouldn't. That they would not, in fact, do that exploration, that the first contact would not have been with them. Now, to be fair, with the movie First Contact, who else is going to be? What other species are you going to think of? Because if people are going to think about what is a alien species in Star Trek, most people, at least if they are familiar with the full body of broadcast Star Trek, are likely going to go Vulcans. If not, then it would be Klingons, because we got Worf in TNG, and also Deep Space Nine. Oberdrones for Deep Space Nine, because of Kira. And now I'm just thinking with Voyager. It would either be Vulcans, because of Tuvok, or the Borg, because of a 7 of 9. I don't think it would be... I'm trying to remember what Neelix was. Talax? Was that it? Don't quite remember. It's been a while. Or the Borg. Well, wait, no, I already said the Borg. It might be that. Wouldn't be... Or whatever Kess is. Sorry. What? I don't remember what Kess is. But no, Vulcans would be very high on that list. So it's like, who else would it be? You wouldn't want first contact with the Klingons. That would mess things up. Or the Romulans. So who do you have left that's going to be friendly enough? I mean, it wouldn't make sense to have first contact with the Andorians. Yeah, I mean, y'all kind of... It would be Betazoids, that would be it. But, That may be because they would be peaceful. But anyhow, yeah, it's yeah. Um, but yeah, I also need to explain the whole why am I good with this and have to be good with this, because as I think about how with the Catherine verse how colonies would likely develop, I do think that some would in fact be like even from humans, that they would be isolationists, they would be xenophobic. I definitely believe that racism would happen because I predict that you would see communities, singular, homogenous communities, would be what settle in the different colonies, especially when it becomes possible to really do this. Um, that it's like with Mars, it would be more like if trying to colonize Mars, like it because for steps there you would bring whoever is most capable, so you'd have a mixing of cultures because that's just where people come from. But once it's like, yeah, we can colonize a given planet, well, it would be kind of like colonies in the New World, where fairly often was people that had some cultural cohesion amongst them. Like with the Mayflower, I'm just trying to remember, what were they specifically? It was religious persecution they were escaping, so they were a common religion. They were homogenous in that sense. I just don't remember the specific denomination. But anyway, it would be like that, but they were still, like, among other people. Like, they still had connections. Like, they could go down a road, maybe tens of miles, but would run into other people. You put the Mayflower onto a planet that has no other human life on it, they may develop to be very racist in some way, because they don't know, they never meet anyone else, so they can just believe rumors, can believe stereotypes, negative stereotypes especially, because there's no challenge. So yeah, it's like I can't be upset with how I'm inferring. There's only an inference, to be fair. How I'm inferring that the Vulcans are racist, xenophobic, and isolationist, because like I've already reasoned out that actually that's probably what would happen. If there isn't a need for constant travel and interaction, isn't a need for others to integrate and assimilate, then yeah, this is what's going to happen. Anyway, so he arrives at Starfleet Command, and we have Commander Christine Chapel. So cool, she got a bump. I don't think her rank had been given before, but still, she's a commander now. Cool. Which also means literally everyone from the Enterprise is a rank commander or above, because they're all full commanders, or they're captains, or in Kirk's case, an admiral. That's yeah. Anyway, Sarek, thank you for coming, she says. I left Vulcan as soon as I was able after your message arrived. Do the findings of the inquiry still go against James Kirk and his shipmates? It isn't going well for them. It's also odd where it's like, couldn't you just argue to T'Pring, I've been asked to go. That's sufficient. Because it's like, you need to give me a reason greater than the request for me to stay. Anyway, so as they're entering the room, the Klingon ambassador is talking. All the members of the boarding party perished horribly in this Federation trap. All but one of Commander Krug's heroic crew died by a devious hand, and Commander Krug himself was abandoned to perish on the surface of an exploding planet. It's like he is building a narrative, and it gets worse. But he's showing the self-destruct of the Enterprise, which, by the way, we do get an explanation of how they have the data, how they have the memory of the recordings of this. But one fatal error can destroy the most sinister planet in Kamarag said. It's the Klingon ambassador. The mission recordings remained in the memory of our fighting ship. Officer Maltz transmitted them to me before he, too, died. Did he die, as the Federation claims, a suicide? Or was it convenient to eliminate the last objective witness? To even say that you're objective, that he would be objective, is amusing. Yeah. Also just realized I think I've been typing his name out wrong. I don't think it always had the T, but anyway. I also need to fix that then in the... Let me do that quick. Is it up? Ah, there it is. There. Okay, good. Well, that's taking care of that. All right. So this does answer the question of how they had the information. It was broadcast from the ship to the Klingon Empire, and that they are manipulating it. They are just if nothing else, the order of information they are changing. But it is also he committed suicide. It's like, okay, that actually jives with the Klingon culture as presented, that he desired an honorable death. With Krug's defeat, he is also defeated. They promised to kill him, and it's like, I lied. It's like, okay, he's going to have to do that himself. But he would still, and not in a way to punish them, to punish the Kirk and the others. No. That would be dishonorable. What the ambassador is doing here is dishonorable. His lies, if he's aware of them, very dishonorable. But Maltz, I can believe, wanted to send the report in so that people knew what happened. And that Krug died with honor, essentially, and that now I do as well, taking his own life. But I do also find it a little amusing because my brother mentioned to me not that long ago, Maltz was played by John Larroquette. And there was kind of, apparently, like, the sort of cult movement, cult as in just focus group people, not like actually cult classic kind of crazy, not even to that level, but of free Maltz, because it's like, well, what happened to him? He's like, he was in prison, then what happens? Is he just stranded on... Well, no, apparently he killed himself. I don't know, I also kind of like the idea of just Maltz is hanging out on Vulcan, learning from them, is like actually like finding a kind of peace there. Would be a little amusing. So anyway, shows the Enterprise being destroyed, and then they show up. The ambassador is showing the report that Kirk made on Genesis that Krug had taken. So this is all part of the data, but being put at a very different time. So with the image of Kirk up there, the quintessential devil in these matters, James T. Kirk, renegade and terrorist. He is responsible for the murder of the Klingon crew and the theft of their vessel. But his true aims were more sinister. Behold the real plot and intentions. One image of James Kirk dissolved into a second. The new image, uniformed, calm, well-groomed, gazed out at the audience. To fully understand the events of which I report, Kirk said, it is necessary to review the theoretical data on the Genesis device. So this is completely narrative building and completely dishonest. Because he's setting it up as though all these actions that Kirk did was to achieve the Genesis device, was to protect that or whatever so that it can be used as a weapon. Rather than it being this already existed, and Kirk is responding to other things afterward. Because if the Klingon were to acknowledge that, then say, well, what is Kirk reacting to? Sarek answers the question. The Empire has a unique point of view on justice, Mr. President, Sarek said. He strode into the chamber and descended the stairs. It is not so many years past that the Empire recognized James T. Kirk as a hero and honored him for preventing the annihilation of the Klingon people. One must wonder what political upheaval could have changed their opinion so precipitously. I have no idea what that story is. Hey, we get the Vulcans are well known as the intellectual puppets of the Federation. Your vessel did destroy USS Grissom. Commander Krug did order the death of David Marcus, James Kirk's son. Do you deny these events? We deny nothing. We have the right to preserve our species. Do you have the right to commit murder? Which it is... So we have that back and forth, and it's like, Sarek is calling him out on some of this. That it's like, yes, you guys are the ones who started this. You are what Kirk was reacting to. Genesis was just a thing that happened as well. It was coincidental. Well, the existence of Genesis prompted Krug, and I'll defend Krug. He was acting to defend his people. I'm okay with that. And what he was doing, I would still say was wrong, but from the Klingon point of view, no, I mean, it's all justified. But it is, I do find a little amusing here. This, do you have the right to commit murder? And then everyone's up in arms. It's like, dude, the Klingon ambassador just called Kirk a murderer by doing this, by murdering the Klingon crew, by murdering Krug, and by murder, did Maltz kill himself, or was he murdered? It's like, and it's like, now you're saying that the Klingons committed murder. It's like, why is anyone shocked that the words already being thrown around? And eventually they get some order. After quiet return, Sarek mounted a dais and faced the council president. This put us back to Ambassador Kamarag. It was an action both insult and challenge. It's like, good on you, Sarek. And Sarek, thanks to his Vulcan training and also probably just his political and legal experience, keeps it very calm, very level, so he doesn't rise to the provocations of the Klingon ambassador that follow, and just directly answers the consul. It's like very good, correct behavior from Sarek here. But it is still interesting, this whole, because in theory, all the memories, all the recordings, Starfleet also has, because they're on the ship that's on Vulcan with the crew of the Enterprise. They'd be providing it. So yeah, it's like that's not the true order of events. I mean, it is odd that the ambassador is being allowed to say what he's saying and the way he's saying. But at least Eric is there to knock him down a peg or two. But there's also, as I said, the whole Krug's actions by Klingon culture were justified. They were also actions to defend Klingon culture. So Sarek's accusation there of murder, it still shouldn't have provoked the reaction it did from everyone else, because as I said, the word was already being thrown around. But there is a certain element of, from the Klingon ambassador's point of view, it wasn't murder. So why he reacts the way he does, I'm not sure, unless it is, we could just give him a lot of credit. I'm good with this. That he is dishonorable, and that he is a politician, and that he basically recognizes Sarek has beaten me. Like, I cannot respond to him, because I am so deep in this lie, Sarek can pull one thread and it all falls apart. So if he just acts provoked, says what he does, and then eventually marches out, and is like so upset that, wait, the council isn't going to punish them, isn't going to extradite them. If he doesn't, he's like, they're not going to do it, he just leaves. And that's best, because if it actually gets much deeper, he's exposed, the Klingons are exposed as liars and all that, and it's like, they can't have that. It's all just posturing. And he might be very good at it. So it's like, I'm willing to do that, but also, there's an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine where Worf is on trial for a bad call, a bad decision when he was in command of the Defiant. And there are a few things that happen in there where it's like, dude, Sisko should have objected to certain things, where it's like, that's not how this works. We're not supposed to be doing that. But there's also, Worf has been accused of destroying essentially passenger ship, a Klingon passenger ship, and so there is a Klingon lawyer there prosecuting him. And at one point, he provokes Worf enough that Worf actually gets up and hits him. And he's trying to prove the point that Worf will, in fact, attack somebody unarmed. But it's like, an easy response from Sisko can just be, you're a Klingon. How unarmed are you? It's like, your physical existence is that of a deadly weapon. So was Worf, who, by the way, is all equally unarmed at the time. So it's like, what's your point? You've not demonstrated anything except that you can in fact provoke him when you intentionally try to. And it's like, all you've done is shown your own dishonor, not Worf's. So, yeah, it's just... That episode has issues, but it is... The ending is good, where they managed to show that the Klingons are lying. That they set Worf up essentially for this, but that's exposed and the prosecutor just leaves. It's like, nope. Because if he stays, it exposes way too much. But at the end, when Sisko is talking with Worf, he makes 2 points very clear. One is, you did fuck up. Okay? No. You did wrong here. You should not have been found guilty such that, kicked out and all that, but what you did was wrong. And 2, you are never going to be a captain. You will never achieve captain, because this is the kind of mistake a captain is never allowed to make. So in that way, it is actually a good episode because of that chastisement that Sisko delivers to Worf, because Worf did deserve it. Alright, yeah, so now we get to the end of the council meeting here with the Klingon ambassador has left, and now the council president is just talking to Sarek. Sarek of Vulcan, with all respect, we ask you to return Kirk and his officers to answer for these crimes. Which, to be clear, before this, the main reason, at least the timing of it, for the Klingon ambassador leaving is because it is suggested that the inquiry has decided no Federation crimes were committed by Kirk and crew, but there are Starfleet regulations that were broken. They must answer for that, not for this other stuff. To be fair, I think that is also how some militaries do view such actions, where it's like the civilian government might be they commit a lot of stuff, but we're going to let you have them first, because there can be greater latitude for militaries to try and punish people than a civilian court. So, yeah, it might be like, we're going to let you handle it. We can always come back and do your own stuff, but we'll let you handle it because that's probably going to be more efficient. It's like, I'm pretty sure that is a real thing, but anyway. So he storms out, and we get the whole, we ask you to return Kirk and his officers to answer for their crimes. The president's request told Sarek much. The inquiry would find that charges were justified. James Kirk and his friends would face court-martial. Kirk and the others had risked their careers and their lives at Sarek's request. They had willingly gone through an ordeal that most of the beings in this chamber could not even imagine. This was their reward. With respect to you, Mr. President, Sarek said evenly, there is only one crime, denying James Kirk and his officers the honor they deserve. The President hesitated, as if hoping that Sarek might relent. Cold and silent, Sarek met his gaze. You have to like Sarek, and he's a political master. He truly is. Because it's like, no, he will just, you've said all this stuff, I am throwing it right back at you. What he did deserves honors, deserves respect, deserves awards. And just straight back at him. Because there is that element of, like, yeah, you've only been listening to what the Klingons are saying. Why would the Klingons say anything positive? They want to attack you. They want the justification for it. Why are you cannot allow that to happen. That is inappropriate, but you are. You're feeding right into it. You're supporting your own enemy. You're supporting the people that hate you. And Sarek is just like straight on. What they did was justified, and what they achieved, you should be honoring them. Because even though, based on the movie, we know that they don't actually receive honors, but it can still be that whole, I'm throwing this right back at you, that you look at it another way, they're awesome. They're amazing. So it's just trying to directly combat that view that the Klingons are trying to set up. And it's just, that is exactly what you need to, and you do it with that sincerity, that you just can look straight into their eyes with it. And it's like, no, this is what you should be doing, and I'm not backing down on this. So good, that. Okay. Moving on, and there was so much, and oh my god, I'm already at 50 minutes. This is going to be a long video. Alright, so on Vulcan now, following Kirk. For all their long civilization, Jim thought, Vulcans never bothered to invent air conditioning? I wonder what logic explains that. they're adapted to it. Vulcan is described as basically a desert planet. In fact, it's even mentioned at one point, there are some trees there, they're ancient, and the Vulcans really protect them, but yeah, it's not a very hospitable planet. They don't need the air conditioning. So, sorry. It would be like how, it's more so where you live than the whole of your species or whole of your race. But there are definitely people where it's like 80 degrees. This is comfortable. What's wrong with you? And other people where it's like 60 degrees is freezing. So yeah. Okay. Yes, that's why I have this next highlight here. Kirk is still trying to get in contact with Carol, despite it being 3 months, has not succeeded. Jim cursed softly. His every attempt to contact Carol Marcus had met with failure. Perhaps she was avoiding him, out of grief or out of fury, or both. This is a little silly, though, because literally the response from him trying to use communication was, subspace channels are blocked with heavy interference. Please try again at a later time. This isn't got anything to do with Carol making a decision. Description here of Scotty that I don't like. He had not been himself since the destruction of the Enterprise, nor had anyone in the group, but the ship's last mission had hit Scott particularly hard. He lost his beloved nephew Peter Preston during Khan Noonien Soon's suicidal attack. Then he lost his ship. It's like, okay. And it describes later that Scotty is basically depressed. It's like, I reject the idea that he would be depressed, and for the reasons given. Yes, he loved the Enterprise, but he should recognize that, for one thing, him being depressed is unhealthy for him. But it's also that, I mean, he was there, and he did take part in, he gave his own code for the self-destruct. He was part of it. That was necessary for life. That, it's not, in a way, he should have respect for the Enterprise, the way he should have respect for Peter, that both gave their lives, their existences, for the lives of others. The Enterprise destruction allowed the crew to survive. Peter's death was a result of him staying at his post and saving the Enterprise. So, I don't like how some of it is written here. And we all are also getting some revisionism here, describing that Peter died in Khan's suicidal attack. No, Peter died at the first attack. Khan's suicide was at the very end of the story. That's when Spock died technically as a result of that, not Peter. There was also mention of where is it? Because it was right around here when it was talking about, yeah. This is going back to Kirk wanting to talk to Carol. Her reluctance for David to be in Kirk's world had been justified. James Kirk's world was wondrous and dangerous. In seeking out the wonder, David encountered the danger. It destroyed it. He wasn't seeking out the wonder. He was trying to stay actually in his world. He was exposed. He entered into the world of Kirk, but he wasn't going in there for the wonder. He was continuing with the Genesis project. So, and there was another one. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Crap. Oh, no, that's right. Sulu here. He had given him much more than anyone else. Had he remained on Earth, he would now have his own command. The Starship Excelsior had been taken from Sulu and given to another officer because of James Kirk. This is false. Sulu had never voiced a word of regret over the choice he had made. He shouldn't. But it's also, he didn't lose Excelsior because of Kirk. He lost Excelsior because Moreau was an asshole. Because it's like, well, we need to keep you here for the inquiry, and we can't delay Excelsior, so we're going to give it to somebody else. And it's like, I even put into the written review for Search for Spock, it's like, no. You let the first officer command, and then Sulu just takes command when the inquiry is completed. There's no reason to believe Sulu would have suffered any punishment from that. So you're literally just grounding him for testimony. So yeah, it's had nothing to do with Kirk, although it was stated later, the suggestion that if Sulu turned in Kirk, that he would get command. that was not set up prior, and that is one complaint that I have with that story. But anyway, I also want to read this, which I appreciate, but also there's one aspect of it I don't like. During their entire 3 months on Vulcan, she had never revealed to her any discouragement. More than once, her strength and certainty had kept the group's morale from bottoming out. I fully approve of this and agree with this on Uhura. Uhura is an amazing character. I love the character, and I really love that she is getting so much more attention, so much more of what is due this character in these books, okay? But the way that's written, Kirk should also be behaving that way. Kirk, as the captain, though, true, this is with his friends, so he doesn't need to be, but he should also be maintaining a certain aloofness. But he should also be a rock when it comes to their morale. He can be suffering internally. He needs to not let anyone see that. They're his friends, so he can let some out. But still, that should be his habit. So the way that's written, making it sound like Uhura is the one keeping them morale up. It's like, good, that's natural for her character, I believe, and it's awesome. But Kirk, by at least training, by habit, should also be maintaining that. So we also get this because it's okay. We have to decide because McCoy and Spock have finished this stuff where it's like, okay, Spock should be fine. We can't. It's no longer, the medical emergency has been resolved. We can go home. So we're gonna vote tonight. And just some talking about this because like Kirk is like, I have to go back. You people don't. You can do whatever, including you can stay here. At the embassy back on Earth, Sarek granted Uhura asylum. The Vulcans will never break that promise. If any of the rest of you request it, I'm certain Sarek will arrange your protection. And spend the rest of our lives learning logic on Vulcan, McCoy said. Not likely. I like that line. I mean, just that is McCoy's response. That is so effectively, so accurately his response. So I'm just trying to find where I am in here. Okay. But yeah, because I mean, it's Bones would be like, it might be a firing squad we're going back to, but yeah, I'm not staying on Vulcan with their logic. I'm not doing that. I mean, he could probably be like, I might be able to avoid the firing squad. I'm not avoiding May's logic. That's anyway. So they have been repairing the bird of prey, which I even made a note. Sorry, Sulu, maybe this won't be your ship. But anyhow, at first no one had believed the ship would fly again. At the beginning, Scott vehemently denied any possibility of making the ship spaceworthy. Sulu gracefully argued him into a challenge that interested him enough to put at least a hairline crack in his depression. Throughout the endeavor, Scott alternated between bleak despair at the monumental task and grim determination to conquer all the difficulties. This is again, Scotty shouldn't be depressed. He's old enough, he's experienced enough. He's certainly lost plenty of people, right? That he should be trained for how to handle this. And even it could be he knows it's touching him and be like, you know what? There's a ship I can repair. I'm going to do that because I enjoy that. It is work to do that will either just distract me through the times I'm not feeling anything, or it'll give me the positive feelings I need to keep going. Either way, he should be the one convincing Sulu kind of thing. It's like he knows he needs this. So yeah, I really, Scotty should not be in the funk he is. Just full stop. I don't think that is appropriate for his character, both based on just the personality, based on the experience, which goes along with his age. Okay, so all that, he should be handling it better than what is being described here. And the Enterprise, wonderful ship. He should also be able to recognize it was a ship, and its sacrifice saved our lives. What greater honor could there be than that? Both him recognizing that of the ship and the ship doing that for him. So it's like, this is not accurate for Scotty. So anyway. Also talks about Kirk. Kirk some here because his job had become one of convincing Vulcan quartermasters and bureaucrats that giving him and his people the equipment they needed made perfect logical sense. I would not enjoy that. I mean, because I probably just devolve to at some point saying, look, if you don't, we're stuck here for longer. You really want that? I would just start trying to intimidate them that way, threaten them that way. Because, I mean, it is also like, why wouldn't you? It's like, what other use do you have for that? Repairing your own ships. Do your ships need repair at the moment? No. We have a ship that needs repair. It is logical to repair a damaged ship. Right? So, that's what we're doing. Give it to us. Also, do you want us walking around in your population? This keeps us busy. This keeps us away from doing that. Do you want us going around meeting your Vulcan people and exposing them to our emotions? I'm saying I would just go the extortion route with these Vulcans. I would. Yeah. It's also true. I don't know any Vulcans. They're not real, but it's just so I don't know what would be better strategies. But it is like, dudes, we're not asking for that much, are we? Come on. Oh, and then we get Saavik, who I continue to like. And it talks about how she felt more comfortable here on Vulcan than on any other world to which she had traveled. So we are getting history on these characters, because remember, this was released as a separate story, not as all three together. So we are getting background on her. And I do like that she has, in fact, found Vulcan to be home. Because she is a character that didn't feel she had a home. And to have found it and is welcome there. And it is stated somewhere, okay, not sure where it was, that Amanda is actually the one who arranged for her to have an assignment on Vulcan. So Amanda arranged for Saavik to stay, which makes perfect sense. I do, and I've said that in previous videos, but I do also hope Sarek was involved as well. That he also agreed. But it could, well, okay, I could have just been, yes, dear, I agree. Do what you must. Versus a, yes, dear, I agree, I'll send the letter. You know, it's his level of involvement might have been different, but yeah. We also get more the history between her and Spock. In his earlier life, Spock had acknowledged her existence, but Saavik still did not know why. She believed herself to be the product of abduction and coercion, while Spock descended on his father's side from a Vulcan family renowned and respected for centuries. He commanded respect with his very name, both because of his family and because of his own achievements. Saavik did not even possess a proper Vulcan name. Amanda Grayson descended from a human family whose accomplishments could not be denied, even if its lineage could be traced back only 10 generations. So it's basically, the way it's describing it is like Spock is almost royalty. I am filth. I am dirt to this society, but he still helped me. And she doesn't understand why. And it's like, okay, she is seeing a Vulcan that came out for Spock. Kirk had always known Vulcans and stories from Spock of him being an outcast. It's like that could be why he saw the potential in Saavik. Well, seeing it could have just been he had a sense, but why he would go to such lengths, because it even mentions he civilized her, taught her civilization, arranged for her education, and he's the one who I'm missing what the word is. Sponsored. There it is. Sponsored her to enter Starfleet. It could be because he recognizes that she, like him, is an outcast and deserves opportunities that he potentially had to fight for. And it's like, no, I don't want you to have to fight for them. You're going to have to fight enough on other things. I'm going to help you because you deserve it. And he senses the potential. He knows there's something there that those opportunities will be taken full advantage of, and so wishes to give them. So it's like, she should be able to understand this. But maybe it's just she's not old enough. She's not mature enough yet to understand all. A little bit of revisionism again, because Saavik is recording testimony to be given over to the inquiry. And she does also say, I will... Here, let me actually... Did I highlight that? So I'm skipping a couple highlights. I'll come back to it. because she gives the disc to Kirk and does say, if it is insufficient, I will return to Earth to testify. Is Vulcan a disappointment, Saavik? Do you want to leave? No, sir. She collected herself once more. On Vulcan, she felt strong and powerful. She felt completely in control of her life. Completely in control of her life for the first time since she could remember. And this reaction struck her as very strange and wonderful, for she had no idea what the future would bring. And does also say she can't possibly explain this to Kirk, and it's like, give Kirk some credit, he probably understands. And he may have even just been teasing her a little bit. You know, like, you want to leave? It's like, no, sir. It's like, good, I thought that you were liking it here. I was very confused. But yeah, so she's recording testimony. We get the Klingon war party forced her away from David and permitted him to die. Because it does describe that if she had gotten him, she believes she could have saved him, given him some strength, but that the Klingons pulled her away. I don't recall that for what happened in the previous book. I might be misremembering, but my interpretation of the events was he got stabbed. She was just there. They weren't interfering. It was David, like, grabbing to the blade to try to pull it down. She's like, no, don't do that, don't do that. And then he eventually, like, resigns himself to dying, and then, you know, brings a hand to brush against her face, to hold her face, and talks to her some. That she wasn't interfered with by anyone but David, and maybe at that point it was, like, when he's touching her face and talking to her, that it was, that paused her, and that stopped her from doing more. So, yeah. So, yeah, again, some revisionism, and some of this I don't understand why. Some of it might be just a, look, moving on, that's not this story, moving on. This, however, because it's not even like it aligns with what's in the movie. So I don't know why it's being written this way. And as I said, maybe I'm just misremembering, but I thought because she's right there. It's his final words, and she's there to hear it. So she's clearly next to him. So she wasn't pulled away. So I don't know why we're changing. And then she does end with, I am Saavik of Starfleet, she said again. I have been assigned to Vulcan at the request of Dr. Amanda Grayson, as I mentioned, but I will return to Earth willingly to testify on behalf of Admiral Kirk and his companions. I swear on my oath as a Starfleet officer that the words I have spoken are true, and recorded. And knowing her from Chapter 1 of Wrath of Khan, I swear on my oath to Starfleet. That's the same as saying, this is more important to me than my death. So it's like, oh yeah, you can believe her. Alright, yeah, so really the only thing I got left here is, so yeah, she doesn't want to leave Vulcan, and I do just have the note, I wonder if she ever will. Because, and maybe she will appear later for the inquiry, to be in person for the testimony. She doesn't have to be, but yeah, I don't know. There is also one other thing that I will mention, because of the speculation as to whether or not Spock when child Spock on Genesis went through Pon farr, did this conceive a child? It has been 3 months, which, if Vulcans are much like humans, no reason to believe that, but you'd think at this point she would be aware. And so then the question would be, who else might be aware? Don't know. So we may find out, because that could also be a reason that she stays on Vulcan, because the child would be mostly Vulcan. And so being raised there would be most appropriate. And so she would stay there and potentially even leave Starfleet to remain there as well, if need be. Don't know. I don't know if it could be left ambiguous or not. But it'll just be interesting to see if Vonda does put anything in to provide an answer one way or another to the question. And it will also grant that there is that interesting question, or interesting desire for some of this concept of, you know, there being a next generation. Not the TV show, but I mean Spock having a child, Kirk having a child, Bones having a child, so that there is somebody of that lineage to continue in the future, continue the stories. So that does make it desirable then for any one of them to have a child. So hey, it's possible. Did it happen? But it's not necessary because, I mean, in a way, that's part of what's nice about Star Trek is it doesn't need. It is a universe. It doesn't need to be Luke is Anakin's son. We don't need a familial connection there for it to continue on. It can just be the next story, whoever it is that's in there. So, but I do understand the desire. I do completely understand the desire to have a lineage, but my point is not necessarily necessary. I speak well today. All right. So that's it. This was long. There was a lot. Good chapter. I liked it. All right. See you next time for chapter 2 of The Voyage Home. I don't remember if I ever said this was chapter 1 of The Voyage Home, but it's in the title. So see you next time.